Bitcoin has been the best performing financial asset for the past decade and is showing no signs of slowing down. When I ask people about whether they are interested in buying Bitcoin as an investment, a common response is, well, it's a bit late for that, isn't it? Thinking that it's already gone as high as it's going to go. Well, actually, perhaps not. Bitcoin's market cap, that's the total value of all the Bitcoin ever mined, is still less than $180 billion. That might sound like a lot, but when compared to other stores of value, it's actually relatively small. Take gold, for example. Bitcoin is often referred to as digital gold, since gold and Bitcoin both have similar properties. If Bitcoin matched the market cap of gold, then the value of one Bitcoin today would be around $500,000 per Bitcoin. It's actually sitting comfortably below $10,000 today on the 7th of June 2020. Plan B's stock to flow model, which you can find a link to in the description below, compares the scarcity of financial assets like gold, silver and Bitcoin and compares them to their value. Bitcoin is an incredibly scarce asset. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins, and Plan B's model suggests that the price of one Bitcoin could rise to around 100,000 USD in just the next 12 months and much, much higher thereafter. So does it make sense to buy a small amount? Well, that's up for you to decide.
I have directed Secretary Koinly to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
Can you characterize everything that the Fed has done this past week as essentially flooding the system with money?
Yes, exactly.
And there's no end to your ability to do that?
There is no end to our ability to do that.
You simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money.
In 1971, the US dollar was taken off the gold standard by US President Richard Nixon. This meant that the value of the dollar was no longer tied to anything, and central banks were given the freedom to create money out of nothing. And that they have done. Look at this chart. The Federal Reserve balance sheet has increased from less than $1 trillion in 2008 to over $7 trillion today. They created this money out of nothing by hitting numbers on a screen. $7 trillion, that's a lot of money. If you could spend $10 a second, every second, day and night, for 22,000 years, you would still not have spent $7 trillion. Now, where does this created money go? Well, the money that's created is given to banks to buy assets with. So the banks take the money and they buy assets. Now, when banks do this, it inflates the prices of those assets, the bonds, the equities, the house prices, so that those who own these assets become wealthier. So what if you're like the majority of people and you don't own assets, you don't own several properties and a big stock market portfolio? Well, that's unlucky. Because with trillions of dollars, pounds, euros and yen being printed every year, everything around you becomes more expensive and your purchasing power is eroded. Young people can no longer afford to buy their own house, and you receive a pay freeze where your real income actually drops relative to the increasing cost of living. Currencies don't last forever, they never have, and by buying a small amount of Bitcoin now, you could be protecting yourself from this inflation tax. Remember, this isn't only an issue in the United States. We're talking a lot about the US dollar, but this affects the whole world. All major currencies have been devalued against gold since 1971, and let's not forget those currencies who are pegged to the US dollar, of which there are several. Growing inequality in a society creates division between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. And by buying Bitcoin, you could be helping to accelerate the transition to a system of sound money which is limited in supply and cannot be manipulated by a small handful of very powerful central bankers.
What's your message to the family of George Floyd, that's going to have funeral services this week? What do you want to tell them?
I'm deeply sorry for your loss. Unfortunately, we live in a system that will not allow us to thrive or strive and has continually been literally on our necks. So my macro solution for this problem for everyone is to opt out and exit the economy as a whole. And the way we do that is by buying Bitcoin.
Excessive money printing by central banks leads to debt, monetary inflation, rising prices, and high time preferences. That is to say, it increases the likelihood that individuals will favour an increase in the standard of their present circumstances over and above their future ones. We all want everything right now. The virtues of tolerance, patience, and restraint seem to be dissolving before our very eyes. By using Bitcoin as a currency, which, due to its high scarcity, actually grows in value over time rather than decays, we are not so rushed to do everything yesterday. I asked my followers about this topic. Most people are not interested in Bitcoin. They're not fussed. They're not bothered. Not at all interested. If you made it to the end of this video, you are in the minority. You are early. If you would like to learn more, check out the links in my description. Feel free to check out my previous video about Bitcoin, which I produced about 1 year ago. And if you do have any questions, leave them in the comments and I will send you a personal reply. Thanks for watching.